Miles, thank you so much for joining CEOwise.
No, it's a pleasure.
I appreciate it.
Great to be here. Yeah.
Now, you started your entrepreneurial journey based on a fictitious character called Vuyo from the advert when he's a big dreamer.
Right.
Tell me about that.
Ooh, Vuyo is such a big dreamer.
Basically, I saw an ad on TV and I thought, you know, I wonder if it's based on a true story, because it was about this guy who starts off selling boerewors rolls on the side of the road and he grows it into a big empire type business, you know, and I thought, wow, that's a very inspirational story. I Googled only to find out it was totally fictitious. There was no Vuyo, and I trademarked it and became Vuyo.
Wow.
Yeah.
But, and you mentioned about trademarks. You said a trademark is only a very valuable lesson you learned.
Yeah.
A trademark is only worth anything if you have the funds to protect it.
Yeah, and you know, it's weird being an entrepreneur. You don't know what you don't know until it's too late, right?
Yeah.
When I trademarked it, it was, firstly, there's a number of classes in trademark. There's like probably, I don't know, 20 type different classes under the same trademark. So, you know, and when you start, you typically don't have much cash. So you trademark the most logical one to you, but you don't realize that other classes are also, you know, there for protecting certain aspect of your business.
Sure.
So I got into a spot of bother when I discovered someone else was using another class of my trademark.
Okay.
And of course that just meant you gotta have the money to go defend it in court, because you know it costs money to defend something in court. So my advice is that if you're gonna trademark something, firstly do it properly, get a lawyer, take the time to do it upfront. It's going to save you the pain in the long run, right? So yeah, that's what I meant by that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I just remembered I forgot your book. Now, you also wrote a book called Vuyos.
Yes.
And what did you write it just to tell people about your story, to inspire other people?
A good question. I actually wrote the book because my frustration when I started as an entrepreneur, I couldn't find any stories that were relevant to me about starting. There's like actually almost zero books about how to actually start, right? Because all the entrepreneurial books I was reading were written by successful entrepreneurs who were writing it as a memoir, and they're already 65, 70, they're sitting in the UK, they're pale and white, they don't look like me, they don't, they've never lived in a developing country, and we've got different dynamics here. And also they wrote in a way that made me think they always knew that they were going to be successful, which was totally different from what I was experiencing here. You know, I was asking myself, am I doing it right? You know, so I just started writing a book, and I said, look, I may not be successful, but I'm picking up lessons in my journey that I think a Sipho or a Themba can benefit from them. So you could learn as much about failures as much as you can learn in success.
Yeah.
In fact, my first boss, or Bill Gates at Microsoft, my former employer, used to say, success is a lousy teacher. So you probably learn more from not so great experiences, right?
Yeah.
And so I figured, but if I can save someone going through the same hurdles, why not?
It's a shortcut to their success.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I really enjoyed it. It's just full of your experience, and it's well worth a read.
Yeah, and it's real, right? It's my journey and the lessons. So I'm not saying if you do X and Y you're going to be successful. Far from it. I'm just saying, hey, when I did that, this is kind of what happened. I didn't see this coming. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, you're not a fan of the business plan.
No,
Why
totally.
not?
Because I just think business plans are what happens when financial services organizations want to fund people, and I think it's the wrong way to start a business, right? Because how are you going to build a business plan for a business you haven't even started yet? So it's all thumbsuck, it's a lie, right? Yeah. And I find it ends up paralyzing entrepreneurs from starting, because now they're thinking of so many eventualities. Meanwhile, if you over romanticize a problem, it paralyzes you. You never get going. So I just think you should do a business model canvas, which is a very clear, succinct way of thinking about your business, you know, and it's got like 7 little quadrants that you just fill in information. It's quick and it's understandable, so that wherever you are, if someone asks you about your business, you know, oh, that's my channel, or that's my customer, or that. It just helps you, not anybody else, you define what you're actually going to do.
Well, it's often debated around financial institutions where should you go to, if you want to raise funds, to a financial institution to raise funds, or to a partner, bring the partner in for finance. What do you think?
I think in the beginning, it doesn't cost a lot to start up a business, and I mean, obviously it depends on what industry you're in, but relatively speaking, if you're going to start a business, you already have some sort of skill set in that, and that's why you're passionate about it, right? And sometimes passion is a skill set in its own right. So I don't think you need a lot of money. So I don't think in the beginning you should go out to go get money. I think in the beginning, start and create demonstrable evidence. Prove it yourself. Gives you the confidence to go sit in front of someone and says, because I started the local market selling buri rolls, right? But by the time I needed to put up a store, whomever I was going to ask for money, I could tell how much it was going, each product was, because I had empirical evidence. On the ground, right? So, and it gives you confidence. And once you've got confidence, whoever you're talking to sees it, and it's palpable, and and therefore they can invest in you.
You learned that if you hire an A player person, they in turn will hire A players. But if you hire a B player, they will hire a C player. Why is that?
See, when you're an entrepreneur, self-reliance is an important thing. There's no escalation, right? So when you hire A players tend to be very they want to learn from other people. They're not intimidated by challenge or people being smarter than them. B players want power, and they want you to feel that they are powerful, so they'll hire people that they can you know, use their power upon them. And therefore what starts happening is that your ecosystem of your business is just, the aggregation is more your BC players, and because A players are not going to stick around for, you know, where they're not challenged and not learning. So I highly recommend to get A players.
Now, I love the advice your mother gave you, that if you're broken down on the side of the road, no one's really going to look and stop to help. But if you're broken down and you're pushing your own car, people are more willing to stop to push. I guess that's the lesson, that you've got to help yourself first.
100%. And it goes back to my earlier point about starting, right? Where I say start by yourself, show some demonstrable evidence, then because you'll be surprised once you have demonstrable evidence. You'll be surprised as you see how many people come out of the woodwork to say, hey, listen, that's kind of like I can see what you're doing there. Let me help you by doing this. And then they just push you a little bit, and then before you know it, you're gathering momentum, and this is becoming a bigger snowball and bigger, and and that's typically been my journey.
You talk about ideas, and that we mustn't be scared of people stealing our ideas, because there are no new ideas. They're just maybe new executions of ideas.
In fact, I see it differently. It's not even just execution, it's visualization of the idea. So in your mind's eye, if you've got a really great idea, you refine it and you refine it and you refine it, and you keep refining it, and you see it as clear as day in your mind, right? So if you share that idea with someone, they'll never have that amount of, or the 10,000 hours or 100 hours that you've already spent in your mind in viewing what this idea could look like, right? And if you share it, all they're doing, even if they ultimately go steal it or whatever, if you get feedback, that feedback gives you another 100 hours to prototype and in your mind still. So it's, you know, iterative feedback into your head. So it's a good thing. And even if they do steal it, as I was saying, they'll never execute it the way you would. That's the beauty of it, because there's only you. Your context, your history, your parents, everything around you has contextually made it impossible for someone else to replicate your idea in the same manner. It's physically, it's like a fingerprint. It's that unique.
That makes sense, actually.